Why am I don't know why I'm off. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm here with Deven and we're going to be discussing coping mechanisms and defense mechanisms.
Sounds like a military video we're doing right now.
I know! That's why I was like, I need to find a title for this. But there's nothing better than there's no other way you can rephrase coping and defense mechanisms. So, I mean, up until a month ago I did not even know that there was something as like defense mechanism. I thought they were both the same thing. But it turns out they're not. And we're gonna find out today what the difference is. So,
do tell.
You're gonna be telling us actually.
No.
There's a reason why I sent you the questions as well.
Okay.
Most of them actually.
Nice.
I mean, if you're watching the videos, you know that at the end you're gonna have a surprise, which is no longer a surprise, but
There's a surprise at the end.
I see how you're watching my videos.
I watched the Sophie one, the first part.
The first part,
I watched
okay.
the first part. I didn't watch the second part yet.
It's in the second part that you find out that there is a surprise.
Okay, well, it's gonna remain a surprise for me then.
Because true, in my head it feels like I've released all the episodes at this point, but we're recording this when there's only the first episode released, so that's crazy. But to start off, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself? You've been here on the channel already. It feels like you've been here a lot of times, but it's just been once.
Yeah, and we've been doing yoga videos and stuff, talking, now we're just talking.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know what to tell myself. Hi, I'm Deven. Oh. I don't know what I should say. I'm 18 years old, slightly overweight, and then
Overweight.
slightly. And yeah, I mean that's all you really need to know. I'm the same race, color, and nationality as Chriag, so
But not the same cast too.
the same cast too. So yeah, and apparently now I'm a guest. While watching the videos, I'm a guest now. So yeah, that's all I can say about myself. There's literally nothing else.
We've gone from living together to you being a guest in my dad's bathroom.
Yeah. That's the timeline.
That is a peak.
Yeah, it's pretty much peak.
Well, why don't you tell us a bit more about yourself in like the context of coping mechanisms? Because that's the theme of the video. There's a reason why I asked you specifically to come here today. And you know why, so I want you to tell everyone.
Well, apparently,
why that
I
is.
think, in my opinion, why I was picked for this video is because of my very different nature to other people. I
wouldn't call it different, I'd call it
One eternity later.
unique.
same as different.
It's not the word, but I could not leave the pause for longer anyway.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, apparently I have a different personality and apparently my ego makes me stand out of everyone, so we just want to talk about in what ways I deal with things in my life, because apparently Chriag thinks it's very interesting. I don't, cause but hey, I'm here to talk about my opinions on it and, you know, share everything with them.
Cheers to that. I'm gonna hit your fingers. But you touched upon the ego part.
Yeah.
And basically to summarize what he just said is, I have Deven here. No, but the reason I have him here is because I've known Deven for what now? Like
12, 13 years.
I was gonna say 15, but okay, at 12, 13,
15.
that's a bit much, yeah. That would be like,
Yeah.
I know him for 13 years, and I've seen almost every phase that he's been through, but this one specifically is one that I had a hard time understanding. I was surprised to see and shocked, and honestly, it was one of the few good examples that I've had of ego in my life, I guess. And we're gonna talk about it more further on, but that's just to let you know why he's here right now. So, without further ado, let's get to the first question. Okay, so the title of this video is it will be somewhat to do with defense and coping mechanisms. Now, the first question is, what is the difference between a coping and a defense mechanism in your opinion? Even if you haven't like researched it, just shoot for what you know or what you think you know.
Okay, well, probably coping mechanism is basically like how you deal, like how you externally fix your problems, and defense mechanism still remains in your mind, and how, in what way you just block it out. Well, defending is basically not letting it affect you, and then also just blocking it out. But coping is like actually doing something about it. So coping basically is what you do about it. So for example, an action could be an action, it could be something you think about, it could be a change in your lifestyle, and defense mechanism is something you've probably like been processed to do
All your life.
all your life. Yeah, so defense mechanism stays constant for a long time, and coping mechanism changes as, I don't know, age, maturity, something like that. I guess that's the main difference I found.
You sure you didn't like Google it or anything? You just hit it? Because you got it. I mean, maybe it's obvious, but it's literally what he said.
I just play a lot of FIFA, that's why.
Yeah, that's why he knows.
Yeah.
Gaming is just a new school now, but exactly what he said, like a defense mechanism, in the shortest way you're gonna say, it's an unconscious process of the mind, and a coping mechanism is a conscious process. So something like, this is like a very vague example. A defense mechanism would be to, I don't know, like if someone touches your soft spot, where someone offends you or whatever it happens, a natural, like a normal behavior towards that would be to calmly respond to what the person has said, but a defense mechanism would cause you to, for example, lash out. Lashing out is an example of a defense mechanism. You would lash out, you would get angry, you would scream at someone, and that's a defense mechanism that happens unconsciously and you don't really have much control on. But at the same time, coping mechanisms are conscious things that you do, I think, also somewhat to destroy or like get rid of those negative defense mechanisms. Like if you lash out, you'll use a coping mechanism such as meditation to stop doing that. But the reason why we're talking about these two here and right now is because it is very much applied with mental health as well, because a lot of what controls defense and coping mechanisms is stress. And so stress is like borderline of any mental health issue at this point. So I think it was really important to go through it as well. Even though it's such a small thing, it's not talked about much, but that is why it's here, because it's not talked about much. And I didn't know that it existed about a month ago, so I just found it really interesting, and that's how I started talking to him, because I was like, I have something to say about your ego, and I was scared. I was like sweating. I was like sweating it like all over, and I'm like, I just hope he doesn't like.
Everybody calls me out for it for some reason. Everybody knows that I am that character at this point, so it doesn't really matter. It's normal.
It's not a bad thing, but it's just,
even my family calls me out for it, so you might as well.
Even my family does, and I have to keep like defending him. But sometimes it's like when I told him. The way I even got him on this video was through expressing what I like felt.
I was in the supermarket when she texted me about this.
You were in the supermarket?
Yeah.
I was like literally shaking. I was like, don't get mad at me. Don't take it the wrong way. Be like neutral about it. Don't like be biased about it. This is just what I think. And I was like, I'd love to like talk about it more. Maybe even shoot a video because I'm doing the series. And I don't think he knew at that point that I was doing the series. Did you? I don't think he still knew. I was like, I'd love to like record a YouTube video because I'm doing a series or whatever. He was like, yeah, I'm so down. Like, come, let's talk about it. And I was like, wow, I thought I'm gonna have an angry Deven here right now.
That's cool.
I was like really scared. Now, do you believe that there are any right or wrong coping mechanisms? If yes, what are they? Coping mechanisms.
Coping mechanisms. I think it's subjective, to be honest. It depends on who you ask. It's like, for example, you'd be like, okay, you're the kind of person, for example, that smokes or drinks or does some kind of drugs to deal with their problems. If you ask the same person who does the same things, you'll be like, you're doing great, dude. You go for it. Just keep doing it. And if you ask someone who doesn't do it, they will be like, well, you're fucking up your life. Like, what are you doing with your life? So it's really subjective. I mean, it depends on who you ask or what you think about it. So
that's true. I mean, the biggest difference in my opinion is that the right or healthy things, in my opinion, like meditation, yoga, or like healthy lifestyle are just more permanent ways of dealing with the situation rather than alcohol or drugs, which are just temporary.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think?
Oh, dude, I don't know, to be honest, because I mean, to be honest, with short-term coping mechanisms, it's so quick. You just go for it. It's like, you know what, let's do it, let's find, and then after some time, you're just like, okay, I just did it, I feel good now. But with like, for example, like healthy changes, it takes long-term time and commitment. So
exactly.
So it just depends on the person, I guess. It's not like right or wrong. Of course, to me, there's a right or wrong. To her, it's a right or wrong, but to someone else, it might not be. So
it's literally the reason why we're here, because I think we share very similar opinions, but there's this one thing where we are slightly different on, but like just slightly. Leading on to the next question, same thing, but with defense mechanisms. Do you think there's right and wrong defense mechanisms? If yes, what are they and why do you think that way?
That one's a bit
tricky.
Yeah, that one's a bit tricky. It's the same thing. It depends on the person, but wrong defense mechanisms, I don't know. It could be harming yourself. I know I've seen a lot of people doing that, or literally just there's like this misconception about what they should be doing, what not, and then they do things that make the situation even worse for them internally. So I guess there's a right or wrong in that, but I don't know what kind of defense mechanisms there are. Not many.
I guess defense mechanism would be like anger, like self-harm, like you said, procrastination, silencing yourself, for example. Denial, for example. Let's talk denial. Denial, like what? Denial, anger. Let's stick to denial, anger, and procrastination.
Okay.
What do you think? If you were to say someone who's wrong or right, which ones would you categorize in what groups and why?
Well, denial is definitely bad because it's just like not accepting the fact that you might be wrong, but also it's right because then you have confidence in your statements and what you believe in.
Exactly.
So it could be either way. Self-harm is definitely wrong. You should not be doing that. It's in the name, self-harm. Do not do that. What else was it? Procrastination. I mean, it's not harmful, but it's also not healthy. I mean, procrastination, I would think of it as also, a way to give yourself some rest, but also unhealthy in a way that you're distracting yourself from something you should be doing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's also a bit subjective. But yeah, I mean, there's no right or wrong in defense mechanism as well. But there's definitely something that you shouldn't be doing. So yeah, that's what I think about it.
Like Deven said, the reason I said the right and wrong thing is because I've come across so many people who either have those defense mechanisms or talk about them, and they will categorize all of them in like good and bad groups, and it's just like generalizing everything so deeply. And I'm just thinking like, what do you mean? Like,
but with ego, I think there's a misconception a lot with what goes on with ego. It's like, people can't seem to separate the line, this very, very thin line between arrogance and self-confidence, which people don't see much. But for me, everyone should have some kind of ego to them, because if you don't have an ego, that means you don't have something like to admire about yourself, and then that just leads to you not being confident in yourself, and then that also leads down to bad defensive mechanisms, bad coping mechanisms, and like bad ways that you talk to people, bad ways that you deal with problems. So it all roots down to your primary nature.
Yeah.
If you could say that.
Or like the whole background and everything. Of course, if you were to go deeper into the subject, it would be hours and hours of footage, which is not going to happen here. But you kind of answered the next question, which I was trying to aim at, was that why do you choose ego as a coping mechanisms, and how do you use it in life? You kind of touched upon it generally, but now tell us a bit deeply, because I agree with it. And when you developed that ego, I was not happy with it, because I've always had a bad experience with ego, which most people have. And like you said, there's a misconception, but at the same time, I understand that misconception, because you said it in the phrase itself. It's a very thin line. A thin line that most people don't even know that exists. Most people that don't even see it, even if it does exist. I know you, and yet I have moments where I'm like, has he crossed that line, or is he still on the right side of it? And I sometimes have to just talk to him to like convince myself that he's still on the right side of it, So why did you choose ego? Because you did mention that, like, for example, denial can be used in a constructive way to help you boost your confidence. So why did you specifically choose ego to boost your confidence, and how did you apply
It all happened naturally, trust me. There's like, I wasn't aiming to be an arrogant personality. It's not my thing to do, but you know, over time you just develop it like unconsciously, and then you're like, and then people tell you, bro, that's not self-confidence, that's coming to an ego point of view. So I don't know, I never even knew that I had an ego, but when people told me that I kind of do, and sometimes I am overly arrogant, I was like, okay, maybe there's something wrong in that. So I don't know how I use it is probably as a defense mechanism more than a coping mechanism, because then when I do something wrong or someone does something wrong with me, I think of myself as an individual and then I just cope.
That makes sense, and that's something new because I always thought you used ego as a coping mechanism. And that's how I reached out to you the other day, because what I told him, which I'm gonna say...
That's externally, that's like when I have to do a task or I have to do some kind of, you know, change that comes up. For example, if I don't know, let's take a specific, like I'm doing a group project, right? And then sometimes you don't like someone else's idea and you're like, you know what, we can change it. And then that's where you use your ego and then you try to change it. And then when ego as a defense mechanism is that someone does something to you where you don't feel like you need to do a action or retaliation. You're just like in your mind, you know what you are capable of, you know what you are, you don't need to really go in deep into it and you just continue.
Exactly. So you do use it for both coping and defense mechanisms.
Yeah.
I did notice both in you, but I would say that for you it's more of a coping mechanism than defense, but that's from my point of view. And what I told him the other day while we were speaking, which I'm gonna repeat now, is that I really do believe that ego or any sort of negative, in my opinion, the negative side of coping mechanisms or defense mechanisms are really just more, let's focus more on coping mechanisms, are really just more temporary solutions. Like we said, drinking, drugs, they're temporary, but I would really classify ego as a very temporary thing as well, because in my opinion, that is really, okay, I don't want to piss anyone off here, but I am really against ego. And maybe you didn't know that, because I really feel strongly about ego. I've had so many major issues in my life just because of people with a damn huge ego, which I despised. And these were people that I was not even like, I did not have a choice other than love. So egos played a big role in my life, big destructive role in my life, and I guess that's why I feel so like passionate about it and like so passionately against it. But when I saw Deven, he was one of the few people who I realized used it very constructively. And the way I know Deven for more than like 7-8 years is a very shy, a very like closed, reserved guy, but with so much talent. And honestly, I call myself shy. So comparing to me, I used to look at him and I was like, he's a notch down. Like he's even like lower than that. Like he would be quiet.
I'm still
He still is quiet, except I guess the perspective has changed, where now I feel like when I look at him, I feel like I'm not confident enough. Like I feel like a notch lower than him, which I'm not like saying that he's better than me or anything. I'm just saying that when it comes to like confidence, we're both shy people. But he used to be here back then, and I guess we used to have conversations where I'd be like motivating you, and now it's come to where I go to Deven to have like help me, motivate me, I need confidence or something, and he motivates me, he gives me confidence, and he's actually one of the reasons why I even got on here. Like if we didn't have that conversation, I wouldn't have like gone and started YouTube. And like, I was really impressed to see how he used ego constructively. But I still believe that it's a very temporary solution. I still believe that
You're welcome for the content, everyone.
Credit goes to him. Like, if I start getting paid, I have to give you like 20% or something.
At least, yeah.
I want to reach out to your people then. No, but yeah, it was temporary. The way I see it's temporary is because we discussed with Sophie on the first episode, first or second part, about medicine. Medicine is a mediate to help you resolve the issue, to help minimize the pain of like recovery. And I think ego is the same way. I think ego is a tool that you have to use to reach that end place, but I don't think it's a tool you should be abusing. You get what I mean?
Yeah. So you mean that ego is just like kind of a boost to start you off and you just kind of turn it down over time?
Yeah. I think like for example, shyness and confidence are two different things. But for example, for people who are like less confident, I think we've both been there. Ego is, you literally prove that. You're like a living example of that. You use ego to boost your confidence. Cause
don't get me wrong, being an asshole is great, but but yeah, there is a limit. I know. I know there's a limit.
Exactly, because we've been in situations like that where we had literally almost no confidence, and ego is something that, like we discussed again, first episode, self-love. Ego, I think, helps you love yourself. I think it's
definitely comes out of self-love, the ego part.
I would say the other way, but I see what you mean at the same time. Can you elaborate?
Well,
because I see it, but
I don't know. If self-love, if you want to define what self-love is basically like you look in the mirror and you feel comfortable in your skin. You're comfortable in who you are. You're comfortable in what actions you take in everyday life, and then you're like, oh great, this is great. We can run with this. We can run with this body and mind throughout the life, and then you slowly achieve things, and things start working for you. That just turns into an ego. That's like, I love myself so much. I'm the best out of everyone. So that's just what it develops, and then it turns into ego. And then you decide if you want to abuse it or just try to use it to love yourself even more.
Yeah. See, that's one way of looking at it. And the second way that I was just reaching to was that I think you could even use ego as a way of self-love, which sounds so pathetic, but for a person who completely is not comfortable in their own skin, is not comfortable with themselves, is the reason why you're nervous during an interview and you just freeze on the spot and you're not able to talk to your interviewer, I don't know, is employer is because you don't have a strong enough relationship with yourself. You don't have a strong relationship with yourself, you don't have confidence, you shut up because you don't trust yourself to say the right thing. And you start doubting yourself and the whole chain goes there. And I think ego is like a mediate, it's like another way of looking at that. Ego could be just a mediate to help you get there, because you don't need to be I guess a good person to be egoistic. Egoistic is being a dick. It's borderline, I see egoistic people being a dick, but I think you kind of take a shortcut. Ego is just a shortcut to get to that self-love, to get things done, and then they start working out for you, because you take that shortcut, you start being a dick instead of a sweetheart. Things start getting done for you, and once you're in a good place, you will try to make that self-confidence more permanent. And instead of being a dick, you stabilize yourself where you're at. You become comfortable with yourself and with in your skin and everything, and then take a step further than that. Because if you think about it, the reason why I say ego is temporary is because if you continue being egoistic, everyone reaches a point in life. I really do believe that everyone reaches a point in life where they will need at least one person to love, to be with. And I don't mean a boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, no. I mean, it could be a friend, it could be a parent, but you need someone, you need a human connection with a second person. I think everyone does, and as long as you're very egoistic and you haven't resolved that whole situation within yourself yet, you won't be able to create that connection with a second person. Yeah, true. It's how I see it.
It's true. I think, every time you see yourself in the mirror and you're like, you know what, I don't like who I am, it's straight away a signal that you need to start loving yourself more.
Exactly.
It could be by anything, to be honest. I don't know. I don't even remember how I started. I think it was just putting myself out there and doing things that I wouldn't do normally, and it works out for you, and then suddenly you're like, you know what, I can do new things, and then you start doing more new things, and then it goes to ego.
That's my year this year. Let's see if I'm gonna end up with a big ass ego by the end of this year or not. And I'm really curious to see that.
With ego is people who love you, really love you, they will understand what you're going for. People who aren't quite understanding you and don't really know what's running in your head will think that it's a complete negative thing, and you shouldn't have any kind of ego. So it also depends on, the people that you're with, the people that you spend your time with has such a big impact. People don't get that. Don't. It's I would rather have 2 friends rather than 20. It's that crazy. It's 2 friends with full of qualities, and that's enough for me.
And that's what I was just gonna say. It's the people that will see your ego as a bad thing, as a cocky thing, do you even want those people in your life? Those people already had a low image of you, or they just like, there's a reason why you didn't bond with them. And if they're gonna like treat you worse, or you working on yourself with however you are, do you even need those people in your life? That was it for this video. Hope you guys are enjoying this so far. Like, subscribe, share, you know the drill. Follow him on Instagram, it'll be linked down in the description below. Follow his and Chriag's channel, which I have linked already previously, the CAD, it will be linked down in the description below. And comment down what you think, what your beliefs are, and what do you want to see next. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.